Hi and welcome to Intentional Interruptions. Everybody's life has been interrupted. It's everywhere, isn't it? It doesn't matter where you go in the world, things are different. We don't even know what life is going to be like, what the new normal is going to be. The pandemic is making us reassess everything. In fact, people are looking more at Christianity than they have for a long time. Just look at online church attendance. Nearly every church is saying that there are more people now attending online than were attending physically. And so we need to realise that in this time, everybody else has been interrupted. And because of that, they are asking questions, which means the theme of today's devotion is communicate. Communicate. We need to share our faith. We need to communicate Jesus. And so our reading today comes from Colossians chapter 4 and verses 2 to 6. Devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful, and pray for us too, that God may open a door for our message, so that we may proclaim the mystery of Christ, for which I'm in chains. Pray that I may proclaim it clearly as I should. Be wise in the way you act towards outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Do you know the amazing thing about those words is that Paul wrote them in lockdown. He was in prison. Did you notice the chains? And so whatever he can say in prison and in lockdown, we can say in this pandemic and in lockdown. And I want to encourage us today to think about three aspects of evangelism. This has really been the theme for us over the weekend as a church. And so on this Monday morning, I want us to think of three things. To make the most of this opportunity, we need to firstly be constant in prayer. Paul says, please pray for me. Do you know, we can't save anyone, but God can. And without prayer, our evangelism is useless. And so we need to pray. So last week, we ended by thinking about communion with God. And part of communion with God is praying. Perhaps one of the things we need to learn to do in this lockdown is learn to pray. On Sunday morning, I encourage us as a church to think of three people we would love to see become Christians and to start praying for them and inviting them to church. We need to be praying, and not just praying they would come, but praying that they would meet Jesus. And when they come, praying for them afterwards. Last night we had John Lennox. He was excellent in explaining so many parts of the gospel. And it'd be wonderful today to pray for those who watched online. Pray that God would open their eyes. So we need to be constant in prayer. And sometimes during this season, the pandemic, prayer can be tough. So let me encourage you with a book. It's a really good book. It's come out, 5 Things to Pray in a Global Crisis. 5 Things to Pray in a Global Crisis. You can get it from the Good Book Company, and that will help you in your prayers. So we need to be constant in prayer, but secondly, we need to be clear on the gospel. We need to be clear on the gospel. What does Paul say? Pray that I may preach the gospel clearly as I should. You see, we can't just pray, we must preach. That doesn't mean preach a sermon, that means communicate Jesus. The gospel is a message and we need to share it, and the heart of the message is Jesus. We need to tell people about Jesus, and we need to try and do it as clearly as we can. And don't worry if you get things wrong, because you're praying and God will make the words effective. But preach, proclaim, be as clear as you can on the gospel. But thirdly and finally, what does Paul say for in this prayer? He tells them to make the most of every opportunity, to be wise in the way they act with outsiders. And so the third thing we need to be is we need to be consistent in our lifestyle. We need to back up what we say with the way we live. We need to be wise. So we need to think about, in lockdown in our homes, how we're living with those around us. Parents, how we treat our kids. People with non-Christian husbands or wives, how you treat them. We need to watch and be wise. And even the way that we are on social media and the things that we post, we need to be wise. And particularly as everything changes today in terms of what we can and cannot do, we need to be careful in the way that we obey the authorities, but as well in how we love our neighbours in obeying the authorities. We need to be wise, and I love the fact that we need to make the most of every opportunity. That is, it's like the idea of going to a sale and buying everything before it goes. And really, we need to be like that. We don't know how long this is going to last and how long this renewed interest in faith is going to last. And so, brothers and sisters, we need to make the most of it. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. So pray to the Lord that he would send out workers, and I'm praying he'll send out you. So, something to do: pray, proclaim the gospel, and watch how you live. So why not think of 3 people today? I asked you to do it yesterday. Write it down in a notepad or a prayer journal and start praying for those 3 people. Invite them to watch some of our watering holes online, or to give them one of the books that we're giving away. That's the something to do. And the song, well, it's got to be one of my favourite hymns that was given a bit of a spruce up by the Gettys a couple of years ago, Facing a Task Unfinished. And it's down in the comments there for you to follow. Enjoy.